Welcome to Smokin Bulls, the podcast about business, money, and lifestyle. Today we've got a smoking topic about equalization payments in Alberta. We're here to chat about it, and well, let's get into it. Dave, there was just a vote in Alberta around daylight savings time and equalization payments.
Which one do you want to talk about first?
Oh, man, I'm a little scared to talk about the equalization payments,
okay,
but I think it's the one we want to tackle.
Yeah, no. Why not? I mean, this is always a hot topic for anybody who lives in Alberta or, and somewhat in the West. Albertans have basically just decided they want to have a bigger chat about the bigger picture of equalization and probably, in a sense, felt that anything we've talked about in the past is not kind of really being heard, and the federal government doesn't really seem to want to talk about it. So, it's a non-binding vote. This was just basically a vote to, in my sense, to show the federal government, the rest of Canada, that we are kind of together here in Alberta, and we do agree that this is something that needs to talk about. It's not just your provincial government rattling the sword, or just the occasional loudspeaker or journalist or anybody talking about this. It's okay, fine. We put it to the vote. How do we want to go forward with this? So I think Alberta basically said, look, we feel that we have put a lot of money into all of Canada through taxation. We don't get as much out. We realize that we have to share in helping out other provinces who don't have the resource wealth that Alberta has. But when the thing that has made us wealthier or with a higher level of income in Alberta is the one thing that's getting attacked on a regular basis, I think that's why you have the situation, and the vote went the way that we had.
We all expected it would go. Well, I think the other issue is, you're at the table, and maybe the rest of Canada, or not all of Canada, but there's big chunks of it that require the assistance, and it's been provided, and we don't have as big a say at the table either. So,
for sure,
in terms of how we vote and how the other parts of Canada, central Canada, vote is often different, and we don't have nearly the representation to equal it out. So right. It's like you kind of start to feel that you're at the table paying into it and not getting a say at the table.
Yeah. And I mean, I grew up in the East. I wasn't there for my whole life. I was there till I was basically almost 18. And honestly, hadn't heard much about Alberta until I got here. Like, it just isn't talked about in the East, and when it is talked about, it's talked about, more in a derogatory way. Often, equated to the Texans or maybe the, Louisiana, the Southern folk and things of that nature. The hillbilly thing and all that type of stuff. But that's certainly not the case, and not my experience since I moved here. It didn't take me long to figure out that Albertans were younger in general and worked hard and played hard and were ingenious and built great small businesses. I always remember some of the stats when I got into this business, that the most incorporated companies per capita in all of North America was Alberta. And I think that just shows that they are willing to take risks and go out and do it. And I think what's happening, and what I sense from when I go back to my cottage, that sometimes there are people who just feel that it's a dirty, polluted place and we're causing problems in the world and in Canada because of pollution from our oil. But it's really weird, because at the same time, everybody wants the money that comes from it, but they want to disavow it or distance themselves from it and say that, well, as long as you're making money, we'll take our cut, but we're going to, squeeze it out to you. I mean, if you looked at somebody who was a true activist, they would say, well, they're just, until they can bleed out and completely cancel out oil and gas, Alberta's per capita income will slowly come down and be equal or less than most of the provinces. We will become a have-not province, but hopefully somewhere else other than Alberta will be in possession of all of the new green economy. That's how somebody who's a diehard would really say that what's happening here is it's the stripping of Alberta's wealth and future wealth to different places. So I don't think most people understand it. And I think even some Albertans don't understand what the equalization formula really is. Everybody just thinks that, Alberta cuts a check for $20 billion a year and sends it to Ottawa. I mean, in essence, we're just, our average income and our wages high enough that the amount of federal taxes paid by all of the Albertans collectively is that much higher than everywhere else. And therefore, that extra revenue goes to Ottawa, and Ottawa takes that and then pays it out to the other provinces that need it. And I think that's where part of the argument is going to come in too, is the formula has gotten tweaked before. Certain things are excluded, certain things are included depending on the province. It's always kind of been a bit of a political edge to it. A big argument right now would be from people is that, well, you know what, Stephen Harper and Jason Kenney were the last ones who tweaked the equalization formula, so, I mean, they didn't do anything to protect Alberta or change the rules for Alberta. So that's, because I think it's every 5 years or so they review this.
I'm not sure.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Harper had a chance to review it in 2019, or not Harper, sorry, Trudeau, and they chose to keep it status quo. So I guess only if you tinker it did you have a hand in how it's impacting Canada and Albertans today. But if you don't tinker with it and you let it sit as is, you're not having a hand in how it is today.
Well, and I kind of wonder if with the equalization vote coming up this time around, it feels like, as everybody knows, Alberta's been pretty beat up over the last 5 or 6 years. Oil has dropped a lot in value. It's up now, but and at the same time, you had numerous pipeline projects being shelved, whether it was due to U.S. administration or Canada, and we were getting kicked while we were down, is what it felt like. And so maybe that's why this equalization vote came to a head here and said, okay, like, we're sick and tired of this, and we're going to vote on it. Just feels like when times are good in Alberta, we're not voting on equalization payments. We're just making money and making hay while the sun shines.
And everybody's benefiting
from it. Yeah. So I think a decision has to be made on it before we hit those good times, or people will just forget about it again until the next kick comes for Alberta.
Right. And will the good times even return?
True. Yeah.
I think that's a really big part of it, is that it might not. Whether we come through with a decent green economy or things of that nature, I guess that happens. But, where's the money going to come from if all the high-paying Alberta jobs leave? And now somebody might say, well, they've left. That's good. They've gone to a different province and they can be wealthier now, and then you can receive equalization like everybody else. I think part of the big problem is Quebec is the largest source of all of equalization payments, yet their resource income is not included in their formulas. I guess as long as it's clean electric power, so to say, clean electric power, then it doesn't count. Alberta's dirty oil revenue counts as revenue for us. Quebec is a powerhouse in electrical output. And yes, hydroelectric dams are quite efficient and quite, or less impactful on the environment. But even, would you have to flood to get to that? How much boreal forest had to get wiped out to never, ever be a carbon sink ever again? Well, how much stuff is now a bog that, has a methane? I'm no scientist. I mean, it's just going off of things that I read. But from what I understand, cow farts are more dangerous than CO2 is to our environment. So I don't know what comes out of a swamp, but I'm pretty sure it's very similar to what cows produce. So I guess all of these things, it just doesn't feel like we're all talking oranges to oranges here.
Yeah.
It feels like one province has an exclusion, other provinces counted. Well, Alberta is oil, and therefore we're producing the most emissions of Canada, which is true. So therefore we should be treated harshly. If you're talking about emissions, and let's throw in the fact that, now that the federal election's over, we have a new ministers elected. We now have an environmentalist who pretty much has spent his life trying to shut down oil and gas. How's that going to affect Albertans as well? Mm-hmm. Why are they not shutting down oil tankers coming down the St. Lawrence? What is the mathematical calculation for the emissions of that product being calculated at? Mm-hmm. I mean, when Energy East was trying to put a pipeline across Canada to move more of Alberta's oil and natural gas to New Brunswick and have it shipped overseas and used in the East, basically got shut down because no longer were we just going to measure on what the emissions were of producing this, but we're now going to start to calculate all the emissions from everything that uses it on the other side. I'm thinking, okay, well, let's count that for ships coming down the St. Lawrence. Let's just count it from pure emissions. That you can get deeper if you want. Do you want to talk about where this oil and gas is coming from a whole bunch of places that don't hold your democratic values?
Yep.
Venezuela, Russia, Libya, Saudi Arabia. We don't know what their emissions is because they don't post how much they're polluting the environment. So therefore, we don't count it. Why are we not calculating these things in?
Yep.
Do you want some cleaner? Alberta produces some of the cleanest energy in the world, but that's still frowned upon. So we're going to shut down our own industry. And when things get tight and they need immediate relief from it, it's going to come on a ship up the St. Lawrence to save the day from some other dirty oiled country. What's cleaner oil? Alberta oil or the dirty oil of Saudi Arabia, Libya, Venezuela,
Russia?
Yeah. I guess we all have a different definition. What's clean and what's dirty, don't we?
Yeah.
That's the best thing about being a human. You can disagree with everybody.
So now that the vote has happened,
Did I get sidetracked there?
a little bit.
All right.
So now the vote has happened. What do you think the outcome is going to be? I mean, did we get anybody's attention in Central or Eastern Canada? Like, does anybody care down there that Alberta voted this way?
No.
Yeah.
Well, we got what everybody expected, a shoulder shrug. And hey, coming from the East, being a Westerner now, but going back to the East in the summers, I hear a lot. And, one of the top things is we're whiners. Seriously. And if you read anything in the last 48 hours, it's that vote was us whining.
Yeah.
So
we are whining. But I think it's deserved.
Okay, but do something about it. Let's just even have a discussion about a reasonable, rational discussion. Yeah. Not we're killing your oil and gas, but wink, wink, we're not. Yeah. Let's just have a discussion about it. And nobody really wants to have that discussion. Yeah. They want it done. It looks good. It sells in Toronto. It sells in Montreal. All the places that vote red. That's what sells. That's what's getting them into power. So why not keep hammering away at us from this? Unfortunately, the way it's going to go is you're going to now get the diehard separatists are going to start pumping their fists in the air, thinking that this is a license to push for separation. I mean, I don't think anybody really wants to separate. Nobody wanted Quebec to separate, even though that there was extreme problems, and nobody truly in Alberta wants to separate. I'm sure there's a few. But I'm sure most people want to figure it out. But if they just turn a blind shoulder to it, you're going to have an uprising of not just the diehards. You're going to get some moderates converted, and you're going to end up with eventually a separation vote. It was purely used for leverage by the UCPs to open the dialogue, because obviously the dialogue wasn't getting opened enough. Yeah. That's what's going to happen. So
we're hoping the dialogue opens, but it hasn't.
Yeah. Well, it's been very short term. There's a new cabinet, right? You got to let them get in and get settled a bit and see how things go from there. But based on initial reaction, sorry.
Who knows? We could be the country of Alberta soon.
Yeah, I thought it was going to be Buffalo.
Oh yeah.
But remember what Alberta kind of does.
Take us.
You think so? It's great because, if you can get down the rabbit hole and reading things, but a lot of people think there's no way the States would even touch it. I'm thinking, I don't get it. If it's such a cash cow, it's not really going to be turned away. Yeah. I'm not sure everybody wants to be an American either. Not that there's anything wrong with being an American. It's just
it sounds like a whole new smoking topic if we need one.
Yeah. If you're a Canadian, you're truly usually a Canadian. I think there's a lot of people, whether you're even in the West or the East, who don't think being a Canadian is the same as what it was 10, 15, 20 years ago. I guess until it comes to junior hockey type thing. But yeah, I think this equalization needs to be talked about. I think they have to find a different way to do the formula, and you have to find a way to make it as equal as you can by region. You can't have certain chunks excluded here. The formula has to be the formula. What do you end up with if you have a formula for Alberta, you have a formula for Saskatchewan, you have a formula for Ontario, you have a formula for Quebec?
Yeah.
Well, you get what we have.
Yeah.
which is, you know,
Mishmash of
mishmash.
everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I guess we probably won't solve it here today,
no.
but that was the smoking topic. So thanks for watching this episode of Smokin Bulls, the podcast about business, money, and lifestyle. Thanks for tuning in today. If you want to learn more about us, go to smokinbulls.com or follow us on social media.